and stop corruption in Ukraine.
Remove corruption. This is a dream within the Ukraine. This is required by partners abroad, but is not happening. Perhaps there is a special caste, anti-corruption fighters, opponents of change. Volodymyr Zelensky and his team came to change the country. Most wanted it, people believed and voted.
Я держу кулаки, чтобы вашего окружения в политике больше не было.
Public statements about the fight against oligarchs sounded bright and often.
Ми домовились, що олігархів в Україні не буде.
Time passed and it became clear that not everything is so simple in this figure. In the cinema, the servant of the people, Zelensky, preferred to ride a bicycle, such a vivid image of an ordinary citizen. In real life, he prefers only luxury cars. The interview is given in the Tesla's electric car, not a bicycle of course, but also without a gasoline. In the frame, the recognizable door handles and steering wheel are Model X. The cost is about $70,000 here. Only the president himself does not have this car in the declaration, but his assistant and former head of office, Andrei Bogdan, does. Here he comes to her meeting with the president. Zelensky himself will come to the meeting in a luxury German limousine Mercedes ES class. Market value around $100,000, still the same accompanied. In the 2018 declaration, a similar car is registered in the name of the president's wife. The theme of the cars for the president is special, you can even say multifaceted. Here he talks about the need to reject tuples.
Я хочу избавиться в целом от кортежей.
But the journalists record not only the motorcade of the head of state, but also the violation of traffic laws. Moreover, recently, Zelensky's motorcade has up to 50 cars. After loud statements about the need to get rid of tuple, such a desire for luxury looks especially strange. The president-elect came to his own inauguration on foot, showing closeness to the people who believed in him. It is also no coincidence that Zelensky does not have a watch during his speech. The answer lies in the income tax return. Any of the watch models listed in the document will undoubtedly raise many questions from voters. Specific models are not specified. However, according to experts, some can reach a cost of up to $200,000, and the total cost of the collection reaches $500,000. Talking about the fight against corruption and illegal enrichment in 200,000 hours is really somehow inconvenient.
Ми домовились, що олігархів в Україні не буде.
Why is the fight against oligarchs and illegal enrichment only in words for a popularly elected president? To answer this question, we turn to the recent investigation. International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, better known as Pandora Papers. Thanks to the leakage of millions of documents, it became known that Zelensky and his entourage has created an entire offshore empire. But first things first. Meet the offshore Maltex Multi-Capital. The company is engaged in the distribution of products of the studio Capital 95 in Ukraine, as well as in Russia and Belarus. As the journalists found out, offshore companies of the heads of Capital 95 received payments from the 1+1 group of Igor Kolomoisky. For example, by the beginning of 2013, an offshore company which journalists associate with the 1+1 group had to pay $1.2 million to SVTV Film, which is owned by Maltex of Zelensky's Circle. The money was paid for the creation of the Comedian Laugh program. Since 2013, SVT Films owns 50% of Maltex. In 2015, the offshore company of Capital 95, Yakolev, Dimitiano Holding Limited, received $750,000 from the Cyprus subsidiary of private bank, oligarch Igor Kolomoisky. So, closer to the elections, Maltex was equally owned by the companies of Vladimir and Elena Zelensky, 25% through Film Heritage, the Sheverov brothers 25% each, and one of the leaders of the Capital 95, Andrei Yakolev, also 25%. At the same time, the president of the Ukraine himself did not declare his share in it in 2018, when his company still owned a Maltex stake. After taking office, the company disappears from the declarations, and the president himself says that he has nothing to do with it. However, judging by the documents that have leaked into the network, the president gave his share to Sergei Shafir, but at the same time continues to receive dividends. And this is contrary to the rules from the position held. It is worth noting that it is Sergei Shafir who has often called the president's wallet. Despite the closeness to the first person of state, the Shafir should not submit a declaration. He works on a voluntary basis and does not receive a salary from the state. The deed deserves respect. The presidential aide loves luxury, moves in luxury German cars, lives in the best hotels, but the main secret of the gentleman are still ahead. Studying the Maltex company, investigators found the owner of this offshore, another offshore registered in Belize, the Verga Limited. The purpose of this scheme is to hide the real owners, Zelensky and his close friends. Surprisingly, it was the Verga's company that Ivan Bakanov, a good friend of the president, used as a tax haven. He personally signed a declaration of trust, which records the relationship between the nominal and real owner, the journalist found out. But this did not prevent him from getting a high position. After Zelensky takes office, Bakanov will become a head of the Security Service of Ukraine. Judging by the documents, he will cease to own his offshore company in only 2019, transferring it to Yakolev. How acceptable is it that the appointed anti-corruption fighter is the owner of an offshore company? Like most ordinary citizens of Ukraine, in addition to houses, cars and apartments, Zelensky acquired property abroad. Welcome to London, favourite place of many rich people. And this is a nice little street, Baker Street. The cost of the apartment on this street reaches £4 million. It is here in the very centre of the English capital that their apartments are managed by familiar offshore company Maltex. It is worth taking a closer look at the documents. Maybe it is a mistake. No, this is not a mistake. 2 apartments with a total value of about $5 million belong to the same wallet, Sergei Shafir, and one more to Yakolev. It is curious that in 2018, Zelensky indicated real estate in London, but was not modest and put the word rent. The total asset in England are around $7 million.
Зеленський своїм прикладом показав, що він не те, що бореться з нею, а приймає участь в корупційних схемах.
But that's not all. In the same 2018 declaration, another company is present, San Tommaso CPR, registered at the First Lady. This is a real estate management company, and this real estate, as you might guess, is not in Troyes, but in the same place in Italy. True, later the line in the report will disappear, but the real estate itself will remain. Welcome to the south of Italy, the small village of the Fort dei Marmi. The place for real estate prices is close to Monaco. The contingent is appropriate. Not far from the sea, there is a small treat with the beautiful name Matteo Citavalli. And here is the modest house of the head of state. The area is 420 meters, swimming pool, a garage and several cars. Nearby is a similar house, according to some sources, one of the president's friends. To understand the costs, let's walk aside and find a house that is similar in size and finish. If that doesn't seem like enough, there is another scheme in the Pandora documents. To understand it, let's go back a few years. Meet Igor Kolomoisky, one of the richest people in Ukraine. It is his presidential candidate Zelensky who congratulates him on his birthday. Nothing unusual. Zelensky's artist. He congratulates many people.
Дорогой Игорь Валерьевич, с большим удовольствием, честно говоря, мы поздравляем вас.
And this is a debate with the predecessor and the president of Ukraine, Poroshenko. It was he who from the stage accused Zelensky of tens of millions of dollars in connection with Kolomoisky.
$41 мільйон з рахунку Приватбанка заплатив вам особисто на ваші таємні офшорні рахунки.
The future president did not accept the charges, and again, I must say, a good artist. Let's look at the documents from the secret dossier. According to the leak, the offshore Candlewood investments is connected directly with Zelensky. In the debate, Zelensky roughly described the scheme.
Так сталося. Всі канали належать олігархам. Всі.
But a few clarifications needed to be made. Indeed, part of the company's production in the quarter 95 aired on 1+1 TV channel. It belongs to Kolomoisky. It was he who was convicted of laundering funds and withdrawing them from private bank by the US authorities and imposed sanctions against him. Part of these funds went through a complex chain of offshore companies to the account of a company associated with Zelensky. In 2019, journalists said that about $40 million was withdrawn in this way. Kolomoisky himself, after Zelensky was elected head of state, returned to his native Ukraine and feels comfortable.
І вам нічого не загрожує?
ближайшие 5 лет прожить в Украине.
The struggle in Ukraine has indeed begun, but not against the oligarchs. In an interview with popular journalist Dmitry Gordon, the former head of the presidential office, Andrei Bogdan, said the following. They have a judge there in the Poltava region. In the city of Poltava, they took him on a bribe. Standard practice. They took him on a bribe, hung him up. Some journalists suggest that this is a judge of the October District Court of the city of Poltava, Sergei Vladimirovich Antonov. According to the former head of the presidential office, Zelensky personally decides who will be checked to prepare a criminal case. Perhaps instead of fighting illicit enrichment, the head of state is secretly fighting those who are looking for the truth.
Свободой, демократией, это, конечно, такая огромная победа демократии в телевидении и действительно свободы слова.
But the format of the meetings at which decisions are made is of particular concern. Esteemed journalists managed to record several of these secret events. The Zelensky family has an apartment at this address, but meetings are held in another huge apartment. The house is in Gruzhki 9 according to the registry. This is a large apartment registered for Zelensky's friend Timur Midich. The cheapest apartment costs €1.5 million. One evening, a person similar to him was also seen not far from this house. Can we assume that it is such a secret meeting that some issues are resolved and government positions are distributed?
Я приедет брат, я поеду на банковую, мы все обстоятельно переговорим.
By a strange coincidence, after one of these meetings, the brother of the current head of the presidential office, Yermak, discusses positions and their costs.
Конкурс, он подаст нам документы. Это вообще как бы это дело. Пусть делает скан, подать, я дополнительно еще закину, что типа. Я сначала напрямую, а потом параллельно в системе, там, Верховная Рада, это там, то есть все, я получаю номера, все входящие, то есть я показал это. Конверты, администрация президента отписывает, подключили как бы уже там по максимуму.
The Poltava region is rich in unusual phenomena, one of which is road construction. Meet another friend of the head of state and a participant of Quarter 95, Yuri Koroyekanov.
Тисячі кілометрів нових доріг.
People's deputy. The area of the responsibility is transport. I have never been involved in business, but after Zelensky came to power, a miracle happened. He has a brother, Sergei Kromonokonev, who suddenly began to build an entire empire for the extraction of rubble. An even more surprising fact, the main players in the large construction project buy crushed stone from the Braxton company, which belongs to Sergei Dorovsky, and a good friend of Koryakanov, a deputy. To understand the scale of a few numbers, according to journalists, Braxton supplied $900,000 worth of rubble to the Turkish company, Onur Tahut, in 2019 alone. It is surprisingly that earlier the company bought crushed stone for 150 havaninas, but when Zelensky came to power, it was forced to buy 400 havaninas. Another example of successful friendship is KAR Jewel Company. The owner is Roman Barbarov, a native of the Kryvyi Rih city. After the presidential elections, he is unexpectedly found a vein of an interpreter and a benefactor. He became an assistant to the same deputy, Yuri Koryakinov, on a voluntary basis and created the aforementioned company, which provided the same Turkish honor with transport service. The profit for the 19th year alone is $700,000. It can be concluded that Zelensky's struggle with the oligarchs is more like a theater, in which the actor owns a capital of 3 billion hryvnia, such a fight against corruption.